Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, US President Joe Biden drops out of presidential race, endorses Kamala Harris as nominee after weeks of relentless pressure from fellow Democrats. Harris thanks Biden for endorsing her, wins the backing of some Democrats, but others remain silent. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance go full throttle against Democrats after Biden quits. Trump says Harris will be easier to beat than Biden. Israel to send a delegation for hostage deal talks with Hamas on 25th July. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to leave for the US to meet with Biden. And India's Parliament session to begin with tabling of Economic Survey report. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to present national budget on Tuesday. After weeks of mounting pressure, United States President Joe Biden on Sunday dropped out of the November presidential election. In an unexpected announcement, US President Joe Biden stated that he would not seek re-election. Biden said that he will remain in his role as president until his term ends on 20th January 2025 and will address the nation later this week. He emphasized the considerable progress made during his time, saying that America has the world's strongest economy. Biden expressed sincere thanks, saying that serving as president was the greatest honor of his life. The pressure on President Biden to pull out started building up from within his party following a disastrous performance in the presidential debate on the 27th of June. In recent days, a flood of Democratic leaders, including members of Congress and influential supporters of the party, called on him to step aside from the race. Biden is the first sitting president since 1968 to drop out of a race. The 81-year-old Biden is the oldest person ever to have occupied the Oval Office. After ending his presidential campaign, US President Joe Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. In a statement posted on social media platform X, Biden recalled that his first decision as the Democratic Party's nominee in 2020 was to choose Harris as his vice president and termed it the best decision he has made. Biden called on Democrats to come together and beat Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. After Biden endorses Kamala Harris, his vice president, to be the new Democratic nominee, Harris said she was honored to have the president's endorsement. Releasing a written statement and posting it on social media platform X, Harris thanked Biden for his extraordinary leadership and decades of service to the country. She described Biden's decision to end his re-election campaign as a selfless and patriotic act. Harris will be the first black woman to be a major party candidate for president if chosen by her party at the Democratic National Convention, which begins on the 19th of August. And my colleague Mitch McCann joins us from New York City for more. Mitch, how have Democratic Party members, lawmakers and donors in particular reacted to, one, Biden dropping out of the race, and two, endorsing Kamala Harris for president?
Well, good evening from the United States and good morning to you in India. Countries around the world waking up to the shocking news that Joe Biden has decided not to run for the presidency of the United States for a second term, instead endorsing Kamala Harris, as you mentioned a few moments ago. Now, Harris says she's honoured to have the president's endorsement. She said in a statement, over the past year, I have travelled across the country talking with Americans about the clear choice in this momentous election. Now, Democrats have responded very much in a positive way towards Kamala Harris tonight. A number of prominent Democrats have endorsed her already. People like Joe Biden, as I mentioned, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, other governors, including Roy Cooper, Amy Klobuchar, and it's reported that Gretchen Whitmer is also supporting her, but hasn't come out with a complete endorsement just yet. So to answer your question, Democrats are responding positively towards Biden's endorsement of Kamala Harris, and particularly, as you mentioned, fundraising. This is critical. Now, there's a fundraising group called Act Blue, and they raise money for Democratic presidential candidates. They say they've raised $46 million today, which is one of the biggest days, if not the biggest, of this election campaign in terms of fundraising for the Democrats. So it seems the politicians and supporters, everyday Americans, are getting behind Kamala Harris.
Mitch, just so our viewers have a better understanding of the issues at stake here, what does Harris bring to the table that Biden doesn't? More importantly, how would you compare or contrast Harris's personality, policies, and politics with that of Donald Trump's?
Well, in terms of comparing Kamala Harris to Donald Trump, they are completely different on almost every issue there is. Now, to give you a brief background of who Kamala Harris is, she's 59 years old. She is the first woman vice president of the United States. She was a prosecutor, a lawyer in California. She became the first female attorney general of that state, and she was a U.S. senator before she became Vice President of the United States. She is very passionate about issues that are progressive issues on the left, things like women's health, things like environmental protections. For your information, in terms of a comparison, they are issues that Donald Trump really doesn't put at the forefront of his platform, women's issues and environmental protections. She has been she was in charge of the border for the Democratic Party in terms of the White House. She's been very important to the White House in terms of abortion issues around the country. She's done a lot of traveling on that. She hasn't been as strong on things like law and order and immigration, where Donald Trump wants to carry out mass deportations. She doesn't want to do that. So it's going to be interesting, because the American people, if she becomes the nominee for the Democratic Party, will have the choice between two extremely different candidates in November.
Indeed, very interesting. And finally, before we close, Mitch, looking ahead, what happens next? A Democratic Party convention, we are told, is to take place, and Harris has to pick her choice for vice president as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. In the coming days, what we really need to look out for is to see if anyone challenges Kamala Harris for that Democratic nomination. Nobody has challenged her yet. No one of prominence has challenged her. In fact, a number of people who may have challenged her have actually decided to get behind her. People like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. So if she goes uncontested, she will be the nominee. It's likely to happen in a virtual roll call in the coming weeks, where the delegates will vote for Kamala Harris, and then she'll be officially crowned in front of everyone at the Democrat National Convention in Chicago on the week of August the 19th. So then she would be the official nominee of the party to take on Donald Trump. But as I said, the thing to really watch out for in the coming days is to see if anyone challenges Kamala Harris. At the moment, it looks like no one is going to.
Mitch, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mitch McCann reporting there from New York City. In more news, U.S. President Joe Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party after opting out of the race. Now, if Biden's endorsement is accepted, Kamala Harris will become the first black woman and first Indian origin woman to contest the U.S. presidential election. Harris, a former U.S. Senator and California Attorney General, is the first African American and Asian person to serve as U.S. Vice President. Her 3.5-year White House tenure has been characterized by a staff turnover and early policy portfolios, including migration from Central America. Influential Democrats have signaled Harris would be the best option to lead the ticket. Now, some on Wall Street are starting to indicate her as a preference. Recent polls suggest Harris could do better than Biden against Trump, the Republican candidate. Some Democrats believe Harris could energize Democratic-leaning groups, including black voters. As Vice President, Harris's public Israel strategy is identical to Biden's. She was the first senior leader of the U.S. government to call for a ceasefire in March. Since the U.S. top court repealed women's constitutional right to abortion in 2022, Harris has become the Biden government's foremost voice on reproductive rights. Now, Harris would take over money raised by the Biden campaign and inherit campaign infrastructure, a critical advantage with just 4 months before Election Day on the 5th of November. And just hours after U.S. President Joe Biden dropped out from the presidential race, former U.S. President Barack Obama issued a statement on Sunday. Obama weighed in on his former vice president's unprecedented decision to step aside for what Biden said was the good of the Democratic Party and the country. Notably, Obama did not name or endorse Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee, even though Biden said she had his full support and endorsement. In his statement, Obama praised Joe Biden as a patriot of the highest order, saying the U.S. president had put American interests ahead of his own as he decided not to seek re-election. Meanwhile, many Democrats on Sunday also backed Vice President Kamala Harris to run as the party's presidential nominee against Donald Trump. All 50 Democratic Party state chairs have thrown their weight behind Vice President Kamala Harris to be the party's new presidential nominee. The chairs held a conference call on Sunday after Biden announced he was stepping aside as the party's candidate. Tennessee Democratic National Convention delegates also unanimously voted on Sunday to support Harris for the Democratic presidential nomination. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and Hillary, who served as Secretary of State under President Barack Obama, have also endorsed Harris in a statement. And reactions from foreign leaders and officials started pouring in after U.S. President Joe Biden decided to end his campaign to seek re-election in November. New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon wrote on X, and I quote, "President Biden has dedicated his life to public service, and that is something that deserves much respect. I thank the President for his leadership of the United States and his commitment to New Zealand, and I look forward to working with him for the remainder of his presidency," unquote. Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz wrote, "Joe Biden has achieved a great deal for his country, for Europe, for the world. Thanks to him, transatlantic cooperation is close, NATO is strong, and the USA is a good and reliable partner for us. His decision not to run again deserves recognition," unquote. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer wrote, and I quote, "I respect President Biden's decision and I look forward to us working together during the remainder of his presidency." Starmer also said, "I know that, as he has done throughout his remarkable career, President Biden will have made his decision based on what he believes is in the best interest of the American people." Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese wrote on X, "Thank you for your leadership and ongoing service, President Biden. The Australia-US alliance has never been stronger with our shared commitment to democratic values, international security, economic prosperity, and climate action for this and future generations," unquote. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Tension begins to ease in Bangladesh as the country's top court scraps quotas for government jobs. Satellite images reveal extent of damage caused by Israeli strikes on Yemen's Hodeidah port. And a look at how women in Ukraine are stepping up to fill a shortage of tram drivers.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Now, former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump responded to Joe Biden's decision to end his campaign, saying that he thinks Vice President Kamala Harris will be easier to beat in November's election than Biden. Trump also attacked Biden and Harris on social media while saying Biden was unfit to continue serving as president. On his Truth Social platform, Trump wrote that the country has suffered greatly because of Biden's presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly. And Republican vice presidential candidate nominee J.D. Vance reacted on X as well. He said, and I quote, "Joe Biden has been the worst president in my lifetime, and Kamala Harris has been right there with him every step of the way. Over the last 4 years, she co-signed Biden's open border and green scam policies that drove up the cost of housing and groceries. She owns all of these failures, and she lied for nearly 4 years about Biden's mental capacity, saddling the nation with a president who can't do the job. President Trump and I are ready to save America, whoever's at the top of the Democratic ticket. Bring it on," unquote. For his part, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson called for President Joe Biden to resign immediately shortly after the incumbent announced that he was dropping out of the presidential race. The Louisiana representative wrote on social media platform X on Sunday afternoon local time saying, and I quote, "If Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he is not fit to serve as president. He must resign the office immediately," unquote. In the post, Johnson called this an unprecedented juncture in American history. He criticized the Democratic Party, saying the self-proclaimed party of democracy has proven exactly the opposite by removing Biden from the presidential ticket. He said the party invalidated the votes of more than 14 million Americans who selected Joe Biden to be the Democratic nominee for president. So what next after Joe Biden pulls out of the U.S. presidential race? Now, first, Joe Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to fight in his place. Kamala Harris may continue the campaign in place of Biden. Democrats will start expressing support or oppose her. Other candidates may also express their willingness to be the nominee. Convention of Democrats will take place on the 19th and continue till 22nd in Chicago. A total of 4,700 Democratic delegates to vote to select a nominee in case of a fight. The convention will formally endorse her to be Democratic candidate. On her part, she can continue campaigning. She can also utilize the donations collected by Biden for the campaign. The candidates would have to go for mini primary in 50 states and other territories as well. Right, and now to updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict. In response to various rallies demanding a deal to release hostages from Gaza, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday decided to bring the country back to the negotiating table for a hostages for ceasefire deal in Gaza. Netanyahu's office issued a statement stating that Israel will send a delegation charged with negotiating a hostage deal with Hamas on Thursday. However, the statement did not mention details about Netanyahu's U.S. visit, considering the demands by Israelis for him to stay back in the country. Netanyahu is bound to leave for the U.S. on Monday. The fears are growing of a wider regional conflict in West Asia as hostilities step up between Israel and Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry says it's following developments with great concern, urging maximum restraint from both parties. DD India's Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv.
To say that it will strike at anyone who hits anyone here in Israel and causes damage, causes death. So it's certainly a very concerning situation. And this is one of the reasons that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is travelling to Washington over the next day. He'll be meeting with the US President Joe Biden, who continues to send his top diplomats to the region as part of this shuttle diplomacy to really try and bring down tensions in the region. But it's not just tension between Israel and the Houthis. We also need to remember the deteriorating situation on Israel's northern border with Lebanon amid these daily tit-for-tat strikes between Israel and Hezbollah, with a number of fires burning in northern Israel, the result of drones, rockets sent over from southern Lebanon as Israel continues to hit what it is calling Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. So certainly a very worrying situation, a situation that world players, international players want to bring down as soon as possible, really amid fear that all of this could potentially drag the region into a wider regional conflict, which could in turn draw in Iran. In Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates reporting for DD India.
Following Israel's retaliatory strikes in Yemen, satellite imagery revealed the extent of damage at Yemen's Hodeidah port on Sunday. Storage tanks at the port appeared to be burning as thick plumes of black smoke billowed out. A large area of the port had been scorched black, while other areas appeared relatively not damaged. Medical sources in Yemen said 6 people were killed and more than 80 others injured in Israel's strike on Hodeidah, a day after a drone launched by the Iran-backed Houthis hit Israeli economic hub of Tel Aviv. Israel's military spokesperson said the port had been used by the Houthis to receive weapons shipments from Iran. The targets included dual-use sites such as energy infrastructure. Meanwhile, concerns are rising over the prospect of the war in Gaza escalating into a broader conflict in the region. Now, this after Israeli officials say they successfully shot down a missile fired from Yemen over the weekend. It's seen as a retaliatory act after an Israeli airstrike reportedly killed 6 people and injured 87 in a Houthi-controlled area of Yemen. William Denslow has more from Iraq's capital, Baghdad.
According to the Houthis, they say these types of attacks on Israel will continue. According to Israeli officials, Houthis have launched around 200 or so attacks on Israeli positions since October 7th and the war in Gaza that was launched in response to the Hamas attacks on Israel that day in October, around 9 months ago. According to Israeli officials, the latest Houthi projectile was shot down using its Arrow 3 defense system. That came in response to an Israeli airstrike in Hodeidah, which is a Houthi-controlled part of Yemen. According to Israeli officials, they were targeting military targets. But for the Houthis, they say a power plant and oil facility were struck. Now, this attack came in turn just a few days after the Houthis conducted a drone strike in Tel Aviv that killed 1 person. Now, according to Houthi officials speaking to Al Jazeera, they say that their strikes are in coordination with other regional groups, including those in Lebanon, in Palestinian territories, as well as in Iran and right here in Iraq. We've heard from Saudi officials, they're calling for maximum restraint. This as there are growing fears that the war in Gaza we're seeing could have regional ramifications and a regional spillover. William Denslow in Baghdad reporting for DD India.
All right, moving on. Business resumed in Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, on Sunday when curfews eased after the country's top court scrapped most government job quotas. The quotas on government jobs had sparked deadly student-led protests, killing at least 114 people in the country. The protests included reserving 30% of government positions for the families of those who fought for independence from Pakistan. Dismissing a lower court order, the Supreme Court directed that 93% of government jobs in the country should be open to candidates on merit. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government had scrapped the quota system in 2018, but the lower court reinstated it last month, pegging total quotas at 56%, sparking the protests and an ensuing government crackdown. In more news from the Indo-Pacific, Japan is reeling under intense heat wave. The heat wave has caused health risks, power shortages and water restrictions affecting millions of people and businesses across the island. Scorching temperatures were recorded from Kanto to Okinawa on Saturday, which also marks the beginning of summer vacation for children across the country. The heat is expected to intensify further from Sunday onwards, with predictions indicating that more than 200 locations will experience extreme temperatures. Japan Meteorological Agency has issued an advisory for the once-in-a-decade heat, noting that it is crucial for the public to take precautions to prevent heat stroke and stay hydrated. And joining me is DD India's Chris Gilbert, who is in Tokyo. Chris, how's Japan coping with it? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, first of all, it is once-in-a-decade heat, but the thing is that we're having in Japan once-in-a-decade heat every year now. If you go and look at the reports of the summer temperatures over the past decade, every year is bringing unprecedented heat that we've not seen in Japan before. And now these reports are coming along with a line at the bottom saying that climate change caused by primarily the burning of fossil fuels is seeing these increased temperatures, and so even though it is a heat wave, it's actually not. It's summer. According to the meteorological agency, this is the weather we are going to expect now. More anecdotally, people I've been speaking to here say that this is unusually hot for July. This is the heat they usually experience in the middle of August. And when they were children, like some decades ago, this was August heat, not July heat. We are seeing 35 to 40 degrees over the next coming days around the clock in Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, the major cities, but also in the smaller regions as well. The temperatures are expected to be even higher, and the humidity that accompanies it in Japan is expecting the felt temperature, or the feels like temperature, to go up towards 45 or even 50 degrees for some days at a time. And so emergency responses are being taken to this, or are being at the moment for the first time this year implemented, but it remains to be seen how effective these are going to be against what is set to be and forecast to be by meteorological officials a lasting trend that's only going to intensify in the coming years.
Chris, any advisory or forecast on how long this heat wave might last?
Yeah, well, it is expected to last the entirety of summer. This particular round of intenser heat is going to last, they believe, at least the coming few days, but after that there is no telling. We did see an actual heat wave that was a week long at the beginning of July, where temperatures dipped down the second week of July and now have come back up again. But going into August, there are warnings of volatility in the weather patterns of Japan as fronts clash. We have seen extreme lightning and thunderstorms above Tokyo in particular in the past 2 weeks. This has cancelled a lot of summer festivals. You mentioned summer holidays are starting. It's also the time of year for festivals, for fireworks, which are being cancelled due to the lightning and the thunderstorms which are being created due to these weather patterns. In terms of the heat itself, local municipalities are being charged with cancelling outdoor sports events or outdoor school events. Heat stroke advisories are in place for about 82% of Japan's municipalities today. That's likely going to change every day from here on, and different municipalities are going to be empowered on a day-by-day basis of cancelling events, but also charging public facilities like gymnasiums and libraries with having their air conditioning, cooling and going around the clock to create safe spaces. In cities like Tokyo, there are not many places like this one, which is out of the shade, and I can tell you that in the heat, it feels absolutely intense, especially for the 1/3 of the population who are over 65. So there are cooling spaces available to those people, but it is still for Japan at the moment seeing if these new processes work and seeing how to react as the situation intensifies in the coming weeks, the coming months, and indeed the coming years.
Chris, thank you very much. Chris Gilbert there in Tokyo. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India hosting a 10-day World Heritage Committee meeting for the first time. The recurrence of the Nipah virus in the Kozhikode, Malappuram areas of Kerala continues to perplex officials. And India's apex court to resume hearing on the NEET discrepancies.
As the world gears up for the biggest sporting extravaganza, Olympics 2024, we at DD India are all set to bring you reports, reactions and all the latest action from Ground Zero. Watch DD India's super exclusive show, Cheer for Bharat. Only on DD India from July the 22nd at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT. Get ready to cheer for Indian athletes at the Paris Olympics 2024.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to news, some more from India. After the first session that undertook oath ceremony post the Lok Sabha election, the Indian Parliament will commence again from the 22nd of July and continue till the 12th of August. With key highlight of the session, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will table the Economic Survey report in Parliament on Monday. Also, the budget will be presented by the Minister on Tuesday. The session will also get the Parliament nod for the budget for the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir for 2024. Tentatively, the 6 items of legislative business and 3 items of financial business have been identified for being taken up during this session. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi on Sunday. India is hosting the World Heritage Committee meeting for the first time. The Prime Minister also took a walkthrough of various exhibitions showcased on the occasion. DD India's Debyundu Mondal finds out more in this next report.
The meeting was inaugurated by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in capital New Delhi on Sunday evening. While inaugurating the event, PM Modi also announced a grant of $1 million to the UNESCO Fund for the preservation and conservation of World Heritage.
आज मैं एक और अहम घोषणा कर रहा हूं। भारत यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज सेंटर के लिए $1 मिलियन का कंट्रीब्यूशन करेगा। ये ग्रांट कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, टेक्निकल असिस्टेंस और वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स के कंजर्वेशन में प्रयोग होगी। विशेष रूप से ये पैसा ग्लोबल साउथ के देशों को काम आएगा।
This 10 days of the World Heritage Committee meeting is a cornerstone event where experts and delegates from around the globe converge to evaluate the state of existing World Heritage sites and consider new nominations.
When India held the presidency of the G20 last year, leaders called for the first time for culture to be placed at the heart of the post-2030 agenda for sustainable development. And in this way, India has helped culture gain recognition as a global public good, one that should be included in the Pact for the Future to be adopted by the UN this September. It was also under India's presidency and with UNESCO's support that the G20 endorsed the Kashi Culture Pathway, which focuses on the fight against illicit trafficking and the restitution of cultural property.
In this session, the committee will examine the dossiers of 28 sites proposed for inscription on the World Heritage List. The sites will be examined according to category natural, mixed and cultural.
बीते 10 वर्षों में भारत ने एक और आधुनिक विकास के नए आयाम छुए हैं, वहीं विरासत पर गर्व का संकल्प भी लिया है। हमने विरासत के संरक्षण के लिए अभूतपूर्व कदम उठाए हैं। काशी में विश्वनाथ कॉरिडोर हो, अयोध्या में राम मंदिर का निर्माण हो, प्राचीन नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय का आधुनिक कैंपस बनाना हो, देश के कोने कोने में ऐसे अनेकों काम हो रहे हैं। विरासत को लेकर भारत के इस संकल्प में पूरी मानवता की सेवा का भाव जुड़ा है।
This time, India has nominated the Moidams, the mound burial system of the Ahom dynasty of Assam, to be inscribed into the prestigious list. However, to get to this list is a meticulous process followed by rigorous evaluations by expert advisory bodies. Dibyendu Mondol's report for DD India.
A recurrence of the Nipah virus in the Kozhikode-Malappuram belt of the southern Indian state of Kerala continues to perplex authorities. The virus has claimed the life of a 14-year-old boy from Malappuram district on Sunday. The resurgence of the disease, which often spreads from fruit bats to other animals and humans, has prompted the government to impose containment measures. The state health minister said that at present there are 330 people in the contact list. 68 of them are health workers. 101 people are in the high-risk category. 7 people have been admitted to hospital and are undergoing treatment. And joining me from Kochi is my colleague Suneed Sukumaran. Suneed, good morning to you. How's the situation in Kozhikode this morning as we speak? Any new cases at all reported from the district?
Ramesh, this is the 5th Nipah outbreak in Kerala. It took around 17 lives in 2018. So, it again appeared in 2024, which which took the life of one deceased, a 14-year-old boy. And thankfully, yesterday, Health Minister Veena George briefed us that there's no more positive cases are reported because there were around 6 samples taken and sent to Pune virology lab for checking the details, and 6 of them are negative. So all these 6 people, they have direct contact with the disease. So it's indeed a positive news. Meantime, the state is under high alert because of this Nipah outbreak, and also the 14-year-old kid who was admitted in the hospital on Saturday and died on Sunday, and his cremation was done on yesterday. So basically, after this incident, the state is on high alert and taking all the precautionary measures to stop the prevention of this Nipah virus.
Sunil, that's insofar as Kozhikode is concerned. What about the rest of the state of Kerala? For instance, are there any public health alerts or are the mask mandates back?
So far, there is no any health alert on the southern region. because this outbreak happened in the northern regions, like northern parts of the districts, like Malappuram and Calicut. The only 3 panchayats are identified with this Nipah outbreak, and most of these places are bordering with the forest. So they assume like these kids or these people, these infected people, they might have some direct contact with some wild animals like pigs or rats. So in these panchayats, in these areas, like the authorities are monitoring all the situations and home to home monitoring service, and also today the medical team from the Pune Virology Institute will be arriving here in Calicut and Malappuram, and they will be checking all the people, like all the people who are in surveillance list, and also the people who are in the contact list, and also the entire people from the entire area. So so far, only Calicut and Malappuram districts are on high alert. But like the chances are there, it can be spread to many other people. But the report that came yesterday is hopeful that the 6 of the people who were in direct contact with the disease is negative.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Suneeth, thank you. Appreciate it. Suneeth Sukumaran there reporting from Kochi. Moving on, Mumbai is experiencing the torrential rains, leading to the IMD to issue severe weather alerts and causing major transport disruption. With the rain persisting for a 5th straight day, the Weather Department issued yellow warnings for Mumbai and its surrounding regions on Monday. Heavy rains have also disrupted flight operations in the city, leading to cancellations and diversions. As many as 36 flights were cancelled at Mumbai airport on Sunday as intermittent heavy spells of rains hit the city. The airlines advises people to check flight status before heading to the airport. The city has been experiencing intense rainfall for many weeks now. And now take a look at what else is making news in India. The country's top court is scheduled to resume hearing on a batch of petitions related to the discrepancies in medical entrance examination, the NEET Undergraduate 2024, which was held on the 5th of May. The court will hear clubbed pleas seeking cancellation, re-examination and a judicial probe into the alleged irregularities in the medical entrance examination. The Indore High Court is scheduled to hear the Dhar Bodhshala case on Monday. In the last hearing, the court had given time to Archaeological Survey of India to submit a report by the 15th of July and fix the next date of hearing on the 22nd. After a 98-day survey of the Bodhshala complex, the Archaeological Survey of India submitted a report in a sealed envelope to the High Court on 15th July. The court will open these envelopes on Monday. The Kanwar Yatra, an annual Hindu pilgrimage to Lord Shiva, is scheduled to begin on Monday. A large number of Kanwaryas have reached Delhi, and some of them will go to Haryana and Rajasthan via Delhi borders. This year, the expected number is about 15 to 20 lakh. The Delhi Traffic Police has issued an advisory urging commuters to plan their journey to avoid inconvenience. Uttar Pradesh Police has also issued an traffic advisory announcing the closure of the Delhi-Meerut Expressway for heavy vehicles. Another batch of Amarnath Yatra pilgrims departs from Pantha Chowk, Srinagar base camp for Baltal and Pahalgam routes under heightened security measures. The Amarnath Yatra commenced on 29th June and will conclude on the 19th of August. The annual Amarnath Yatra began on Saturday as the first batch of pilgrims started their journey to the 3,880-meter high cave shrine in the South Kashmir Himalayas. And still to come on DD India News Hour. More than 1,500 US flights cancelled for the 3rd straight day as airlines struggle to recover from global tech outage. World's longest rowing boat to take part in Olympic torch relay. And Doraemon drone show wows crowds in Hong Kong. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Time now for business news. The dollar eased on Monday in the initial reaction to US President Joe Biden's decision to end his re-election campaign, clearing the way for another Democrat to challenge Donald Trump. The US currency slipped 0.08% to 157.38 yen early in the Asian day, while the euro gained 0.11%. China's yuan was largely unfazed by the central bank's decision to cut a key interest rate. Meanwhile, the dollar was steady at 7.28 yuan in offshore trading after the People's Bank of China cut the 7-day reverse repo rate to 1.7% from 1.8%, saying the move would improve open market operations and support the real economy. More than 1,500 US flights have been cancelled for the third straight day as airlines struggle to recover from a global tech outage that left thousands of passengers stranded at airports. Although airlines began to resume operations, companies were dealing with backlogs of delayed and cancelled flights, leaving passengers frustrated. A software update by global cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike triggered systems problems that grounded flights, forced broadcasters off air, and left customers without access to services such as healthcare or banking. Out of more than 110,000 scheduled commercial flights on Friday, 5,000 had been cancelled globally, with more expected. The US carrier Delta Airlines said it expected additional delays and cancellations through the weekend. In sports news, the 9-year-old Indian origin racing sensation Atika Mir created history on Sunday at the prestigious Le Mans Kart International Circuit by becoming the first female racer in the world to win a race in the Challenge International Trophy. She achieved this by winning race 2 in the heats of the Micro Max category. Despite it being her first visit to the legendary Le Mans circuit with no prior practice, Atika adapted quickly to the new brand and consistently topped the grid. A total of 36 drivers competed in the Micromax category in the series, and a total of 318 drivers represented 40 nations across all categories. This win places Atika among the elite list of drivers, which includes the current F1 champion Max Verstappen. With just days left for the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, the torch relay meandered through the suburbs of the capital city, Paris, and was even carried in the world's longest rowing boat. The flame made stops at some of the area's castles, including the impressive Chateau de Vincennes, where throngs of onlookers cheer the torchbearers down the route. Finally, a torchbearer carried the flame onto the longest rowing boat in the world to take a spin down the River Marne. The relay will continue on Monday and will culminate with the lighting of the cauldron in the host city, Paris, during the opening ceremonies of the Games. The 2024 Paris Olympics will be held from the 26th of July to the 11th of August. A group of 10 highly skilled dogs from various Indian forces has been deployed in France to ensure the safety and security of different locations during the Olympics. The canine teams, accompanied by their handlers, will be responsible for sniffing and patrolling duties at various event venues. Now, this is the first ever collaboration of canine squads between the Indian and French governments. More Ukrainian women are learning to drive public transport vehicles, a job that has been done mostly by men so far. But with the ongoing conflict, more men are being sent to the battlefield, causing a shortage of drivers, and Ukraine is trying to fill that gap. Megumi Lim visited a tram school in Kyiv, where more women are taking the driver's seat.
On a hot summer day in Kyiv, 4 women board an old tram, a vehicle that could launch them into their new careers. Among them are former cooks and seamstresses. Instructor Serhiy guides them as they accelerate past traffic. Kyiv's electric tram network opened in the summer of 1892, and more than 400 vehicles used to serve the capital's residents. Now there are about 260 left, and not enough drivers to drive them.
Driver shortages are not only limited to trams, but also trains, buses, and trucks. Ukraine's Ministry of Infrastructure says there is at least a 30% shortage of drivers across the country, and this number is likely to increase as more men get called up to the battlefield.
This month, military authorities will finish collecting updated information on conscription-aged men across Ukraine, based on the new mobilization law. And the task to draft them may soon begin in earnest. That is why this tram school in Kyiv is hoping to recruit more women.
We try to attract them by offering official employment and a favorable retirement age. Drivers retire 5 years earlier than other jobs, and wages, I believe, are competitive for Ukraine.
As Irina steps down on the accelerator, she is reminded of her old job.
Before this, I worked as a seamstress. In principle, the pedal is the same, only bigger.
Natalia and her family were displaced from Mariupol, a city now under Russian occupation.
When the war began, we left Mariupol and went abroad. Later we returned to Kyiv and had to decide, look for something to do, something I had not done before, and I chose the tram.
As Ukrainian men continue to hold off the enemy on the battlefield, it is the women who will keep life in the cities on track. Megumi Lim in Kyiv reporting for DD India.
In a spectacular display of technology and creativity, a drone show featuring the beloved Japanese cartoon character Doraemon captivated a large crowd in Hong Kong. The event took place at the iconic Victoria Harbour, where thousands gathered to witness the sky filled with hundreds of synchronized drones, forming intricate patterns and animations of Doraemon and his friends. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Up. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download it. On the news of the day, you can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.